Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Ken Knorr, and he is founder of a company called That Company. You got it, That
Right.
Company. So we'll have Ken tell us a little bit about how he got that name. What's interesting about him is he's a white label company that works with SEO development, digital marketing for companies, and has worked with over 400 agencies and partners in the process of doing this. And so, what a remarkable contribution you make with what you're doing. So, tell us first, how did you get started? Why that name? And then, why white label?
Sure. Well, that's a lot to unpack. Um, well, first, let me say thank you for having me. Really, really good to be here. And so, how did I get started? Well, I was born. No, I'm kidding. We won't go that far. Um, I got started actually doing digital marketing for a different in a different life. I say that when I say that I worked for a different company. I've been a serial entrepreneur my entire life, but I took a stint in corporate for a while. And while I was in corporate, I was challenged by an owner of a company that we needed to solve this Google thing. And that was in 1999, and Google was just born. And I was an IT guy. And so I looked at the problem to be one of a math problem, an algorithm problem, a puzzle that needed to be solved. As an IT guy, I knew no other way to solve it. And so I went out and I reversed engineered Google is what got me into the business. Transitioning from IT. And when I say I reverse engineered Google in 2001, there was a wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl. And on Monday morning, my personal website, KenKnorr.com, ranked number one when you search Janet Jackson's breast. And my internet service provider, who at the time was a little company called Sundial Internet Services, because they provided dial up, shut me down. I need to kill my cell phone here because it keeps making a bunch of noise. They shut me down because I was burying their T1 line at the time, and we had so much traffic. So I figured it out, and I took that company that I work for and I put them in the number one position for a very coveted keyword here in Florida, Florida retirement communities. And we went from being a little company that built 50 homes a year to being a company that built 1,000 homes a year. And I exploded in growth with them and learned a lot and spent close to a decade with them. But in 2007, I was going to strike out on my own. I was going to take my knowledge of internet marketing and these capabilities I had with SEO, and I was going to take them out into the home building industry. So I started a company called Build Intelligence Web Solutions, and nobody could pronounce that name. I wasn't a good marketer in that sense, that I didn't know how to name my own company. Not from a marketing perspective. I knew how to do digital. I wasn't a great PR guy. And so we started Build Intelligence Web Solutions, and we started in 2007, but in May of 2007. But if you think about the timeline, in 2008, the home building industry crashed and burned, just crashed and burned. Nothing. I mean, it was devastating what was going on in that industry. Well, my entire focus was on building or doing work for the home building industry. Now it's dead. So I pivoted. I pivoted really quickly, and we said we're going to become agnostic. We'll do digital marketing for anybody. We went through a little bit of an acquisition there. We acquired a company called PPC Management, which was ppcmanagement.com. And shortly thereafter, I took the organic ranking for PPC Management, pay-per-click management, all of the paid advertising management, took the number one slot nationwide, held it for 8 or 9 years. At the same time, we acquired another asset. We acquired SEOcompany.com, and I took the number one position for the phrase SEO company for 7 or 8 years. And at that time, I told you the story before we went on the air. My team around me, we had acquired an advertising agency, and we're merging them in. And they were like, well, we need to get ranking for that. And I'm like, the domain names really helped a lot back in those days. I said, we could get, if we could only have advertisingagency.com. Well, we can't get that. And I realized that the word that was what Google considers a white word or a stop word. Like it's is a, the, and that. It ignores them. Google really doesn't pay attention to those words. And so we could get that advertisingagency.com and it would be just as good as having advertisingagency.com back in the days when domain names mattered. They don't matter as much anymore. Um, and so we looked at it and we were, oh, we get that. Sure, we got that. We got that domain. But it would be really cool if we could become that company. And I'm like, all right. Well, so we looked and we found that a guy that owned it in Texas but wasn't using it. He didn't have anything on it. We called him up and said, "Hey, we want to buy it from you." And he said, I can't find the password to my account. I can't even sell it to you." I'm like, "You could do a password, anything. We want to buy it." No, couldn't figure it out. So as luck would have it, or as God would have it, I guess, because it was kind of fate. We were only a few weeks away from it expiring, and so we waited it out. He didn't renew the domain name, and we bought it as soon as it expired, and we rebranded our entire company to become that company. And that's history. That was how we got there.
That's how you got started. I think
That's
that's
how we
awesome.
got there. So the next question that you packed into that was white label. How'd you get into that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and white label is really, that's our thing. So first, maybe it's easier for me to explain to your audience what white label is. Maybe some of them know what, some of them don't. But white label means that we package up our services, and we operate under all of our agencies brands. So over 400, almost 500 agencies today, that we provide digital marketing services for: SEO, pay-per-click, social media, email campaign management, that kind of stuff. And we actually operate as them. So we like to say these days we're that company and that company and that company and that company, right? And so when we actually interact directly with their customers and we interact under their brand. So we will answer the phone as their company name. We will send out reports all underneath their logos and brands, and we completely interact invisibly as far as the end client is concerned. They have no idea that we exist. So we do the work, but our agency partners, they get the glory. So how did I get into that? Well, in 2007, right after we started, I told you we acquired ppcmanagement.com, and we actually was a software product, and we acquired their software, their customer list, and their website and everything. And we flipped it into being a services company where we're going to provide them as services, not as a software product. And about 6 months in, we got a call from a big SEO firm out in New York City. And they said, "Hey, we do SEO and we do it really well. We have a lot of customers, but we really don't do pay per click. And we would love for you to do pay per click for us." And that's how we kind of started out and built our whole model on, we're going to interact as our partner with their customers. So there's a lot of places out there where you can like outsource it. You can have somebody do the work. They'll resell their services. But the problem with that was that you had to, as a company, as our partner, you'd have to sit in between us and the customer, meaning that you'd have to sit on the customer calls, talk to the customer. Then you get done with the customer and you pick up the phone and you call us and you tell us this is what the customer wants. Then we do the work. Then we call you back and tell you this is what we did. And then you go and talk to the customer again. And it made it just like the telephone game. There's kids where start with one word and it goes around the circle. And by the time it gets to the end, it's not really the same word anymore. So we found that we didn't want to do that. We want to interact on behalf of our partner directly with the and the end client. Well, by 2011, we were doing digital marketing for pretty much anybody directly. But by 2011, this one SEO firm had 70 clients with us. And so we were doing a big piece of our business was white label. It wasn't our focus. It wasn't our business, but that we were doing it. And making a long story short, in 2015, Google came in and disrupted, I would say devastated the SEO industry. So, like I said, dominated. I had the number one position for the phrase SEO company for 8 years running. In 2015, they come in, Google, and overnight they flip the switch, and everybody who ranked for the phrases SEO company and the surrounding phrases were gone, all of us. And we knew each other. We saw each other at industry, events, things like that. And I knew our competition. I was in the number one spot, but the 9 spots below me, they moved around a little bit, but they were pretty consistent for a long time. companies like National Positions, SEOP.com, SEO.com. All those guys were the top running in the SEO space. And Google came and just wiped that algorithm. And as I've explained, I do it all with math. And so we looked at it and we're like, what's going on? Um, None of the other keyword spaces had changed. None of our client stuff had changed, just the SEO space. And so we were pretty sure that Google was out to crush the SEO industry or do something to the SEO industry. And in about 3 weeks, actually, the search results changed again from that moment in 2015, and they made it into a local search result, which I can understand. But it was again kind of pointed at the SEO industry to a degree. And what a local result means is that when you do a search for something like pizza, you don't want the best pizza in the country. You want the pizza that's closest by. You want the best pizza that's closest by. So to give you back a set of local results that show you the pizza places that are nearby. Well, they had taken SEO and made SEO, the phrases around SEO company and those kind of phrases, into local search results. So instead of giving you the nation's best top 10 elite SEO firms, instead you got the one that's closest by, the 3 or 4 that are near proximity to you. That doesn't mean they're a good SEO company. It just means that they were close by. And so because that happened, we decided to say, hey, if if Google's going to turn SEO into pizza, we're going to have to become the pizza oven for all the pizza companies out there that are going to be suddenly getting this work and really not know how to do it, or get clients and they can't keep them because they can't maintain their rankings. They're not really as professional. And so we'd already been doing white label. And we said, we're going to pivot completely, 100% pivot our entire business into white label. And we did. And so if you go out there and do searches for phrases like now, what is white label and things, now we dominate that space. So that we went and moved into that space, again, national. And we started working with tons and tons of agencies. And since 2015, it's now that list has grown. So when that pivot happened, I think we had 3 white label contracts. Today it's over 500. So that's how we got there. Life as an entrepreneur is about pivoting. It's about reacting to the marketplace and doing what you need to do. Right.
Ken, I mean, I'm fascinated by that because that's often where people stumble and fall,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yes.
what was it? There was something about that in your thought process that
Mhm.
allows you to make that pivot. You could see something. So, what was
Sure.
that? What's the discipline that you bring to it that allowed you to make that pivot?
So and I've pivoted a few times. And uh, uh, let me just say this: the first thing, and I think the most important thing in being able to effectively execute a pivot starts with the entrepreneur themselves. And the entrepreneur cannot have an ego that believes that whatever their idea was so amazing it's unchangeable.
Mm.
So if you've got an ego and you think that whatever your thing is, the thing that you were going to do and you had your heart set on doing is so unchangeable, then you'll go down with the ship. Because if the market is not there for you, you're not going to react to what the market is. I have a great friend of mine. He's an attorney and he's an entrepreneurial attorney, which is kind of an oxymoron. It's a contradiction in words. Most attorneys aren't entrepreneurial, but he said something to me once that I'll just never forget. And that was, he said, business is invented. And by that, he meant we can do whatever we want. We can absolutely do anything we want. And we can invent processes. We can invent services. We can invent products. We invent it all. The only requirement we have to being successful is that the market responds to our invention and is willing to give us money for it. So if you are so hung up on your invention, you think it's the most amazing idea in the world, and it could be, but if the market's not ready for it, the market doesn't understand it, and you can't get people to give you money for whatever it is, then you're done. So you have to check the ego at the door. You have to basically say, I'm willing to go where the market leads me. You have to be what I would call an opportunist, right? That's what I became, was an opportunist. Now there are people that have an amazing idea and it strikes on fire. And there are people that will take a mediocre idea and quite candidly, through a force of will, bring it to be. And that's amazing. And the right place, right time. There's a little bit of luck involved with some of this too, and certainly skills involved. But I think the most important thing in the ability to make a pivot, successfully make a pivot, is to check your ego. It is.
When do you know it's time to make a pivot?
Yeah, so it's a you got to have a little forward vision, that's for sure. You got to be able to look out I think we all get hung up in if you're successful in business, then you have, let me put it this way, you have a lot of KPIs, you're looking at a lot of numbers, you're measuring what's going on. But I call that looking down at the dashboard. And sometimes you do need to look up through the windshield and see where you're going, because you can get hung up looking at your instruments, and looking at your dashboard, if you will. And you do need to look at where you're headed. I think that I don't know that I have the magic key to that or answer to that, other than I could just see that the problem that we had in front of us wasn't going to generate enough front end. And the excuse me, being in the digital marketing space, um, our job for our clients is to create a lead flow or a funnel of customers to their product or service or whatever. It's either going to be generating leads or we're going to sell products online, what have you. And then we become very quick and good at analyzing whether or not there's enough there to make the math work. And so I think part of me was able to look at the data, the situation that we were in, and both times where the industry that that I was marketing to was gone. Where did I need to pivot to? And then when that space kind of the changes happened with Google that were so dramatic in our space, what did we need to do? And we just were able to see it. I don't know that I have that magic for every situation, but lift your head up, look at the data, try to understand it, and don't get hung up on, hey, what I've been doing is the only way to do it. So that's another thing too. There's one of my favorite books is a book called, I don't know if you've ever read it or heard of it. It's called The Medici Effect.
Yeah.
That book. So the Medici Effect talks about people from different backgrounds. When you bring them together, that's where real innovation happens. Um, because we don't know any better. When you bring people from different backgrounds, they don't understand that there are rules because there are no rules in their mind. So when one of the examples they give in the book is that if you bring a biologist and an economist together and you have them look at the stock market, the economist, of course, looks at the stock market with a lot of experience and deep level of understanding of what the stock market is. The biologist comes in and he doesn't know anything about that. But what he brings to the table is his experiences, his knowledge. And so he begins to look at the stock market like a living organism. He can probably see something about the way that the stock market behaves that the guy that's been in it all of his life doesn't see or understand. And so I think that's part of what has brought us. We bring a lot of internally. I think one of the things that is said about me is I believe that 1 + 1 = 3. And that is that you don't just bring two people together and you have this. No, you get this whole other thing when you bring multiple people together to solve problems. So we have brought a lot of people, and I've surrounded myself with a lot of experts in a lot of different things, and they see things differently, and they will bring those up. And so that's the other thing. Check your ego at the door. Listen to the people around you. Hear what they're trying to say to you, and be willing to reinvent yourself. If that makes sense.
Takes energy to reinvent yourself.
Does. It takes energy to reinvent yourself, but if you're going to be an entrepreneur, and I love the premise of your podcast, you're going to build a legacy. Um, you probably have undying energy in what you do anyway. So I don't look at work as work. I don't think of work as a grind. I'm so passionate about what I do. I love doing it, and so I don't feel like it takes the same energy. I think you put a lot of energy into things you don't like doing, but when you really love doing something, it just kind of flows, right? It's just you, You get up and you're ready to do it. Perseverance. That's why I think that entrepreneurs that get into a particular business or something because of just money, like that's the way I can make money, they're likely to fail. They don't have the distance run in them. And I have heard that another saying. I got to tell you, I'm a lover of idioms because I think they pack in so much real knowledge into a short little set of words. And somebody once said to me, "I'm an overnight success," but it was a lot of overnights. Um, and it's true. You hear, of course, about the amazing overnight success stories, but those aren't the common ones. The common success story is the man, the woman who is just grinding it out and working their butts off and making something for themselves, and going at it day in and day out and day in and day out, and success is measured by their own vision of what they consider to be success. Being able to feed your family, take care of your employees. In some cases, that's grow into something huge. Some cases, that's grow into something that is huge to you. It doesn't need to be huge to everybody else, just huge to you. And I think that when you have passion about what you do, you love what you do, it will carry you on those that long run, right? That lot of overnights, and you just don't lose it. You just don't grow tired of it. It's yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't consider it work. In fact, I have to. My wife has to. I have to think about it. I have to tear myself away from work because I would do it nonstop. I would just not quit. And there's more to life than work. So
So I want to come back to what you said with one plus
sure,
one
equals
equals
three.
three or more, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that comes from collaboration
yep.
and bringing very disparate groups of people together who really can make a contribution.
Mhm.
That is an unusual skill set because many people don't, we tend to gather around us people who are similar, not people who are different,
Right.
because that really challenges us. So, talk a little bit more about that and what it takes to create a collaborative team.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. So starting at kind of really the high level, if you surround yourself with like people, you're missing out because let's be real. If you're going to be honest with yourself, and it all, by the way, all of this, everything we're about to discuss comes down to honesty. Let's go there first. So it comes down to honesty, and by that I mean pure, absolutely unvarnished truth. Okay. And so if we're on, first, if we're honest with ourselves, if we're honest with ourselves, we know we have strengths and we also know we have weaknesses because we're not strong in everything. Okay. I'm an idea guy. I know that's one of my strengths. I hate repetitious work. So if I have to do something over and over and over, that's not me. But there are people that love that kind of stuff, but that's not me. I am somewhat disorganized. If you look at my desk, it is not the cleanest place on the planet. I just don't operate that way. If you look at my file structure system and my data, though, it's super clean. So there's in different places, different ways. But if we aren't honest with ourselves about our weaknesses, then the best thing you can do with a weakness, if I'm standing in front of the old the kid who puts his finger in the dike, right? If I look at a wall and it looks really strong, but there's a weakness right there, and if I look at my weakness, then what I need to do is I need to find somebody who counters me with that strength. And that's going to be somebody different than me. That's not going to be somebody like me. That's going to be somebody that's totally different from me. I am a guy who operates outside of the box. There are plenty of people, though, when you're trying to run a business that need to operate inside of a box and are really good at drawing the boxes, building processes and procedures and all that you need to do to scale to get bigger. So the first and most important thing is you've got to surround yourself with people that shore up your weaknesses, not people who just add to your strength. You have strengths; those are good. Now I need to get strengths that I don't have, and so that's step number one. Um, then step number two, I come back to that brutal truth, right? How do you create that collaborative environment? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to work with your employees, the people that you work with directly, when you're starting out and it's small, and as you get larger, you have to encourage your management team and build structures in for your management team to do the same thing. but we have to have candid conversations with the people that we work with. We can, if I can recognize my weaknesses, then they need to be able to recognize their own, right? So they can have that. But in that environment, when we can tear away the emotions, and for everybody, this is not easy. But when we can tear away the emotions, when I can look at you and tell you, this is what you're really good at, but I need you to get better at this. And you can look at me and say, this is what you are good at, and this is what you need to get better at. And we can have that honest conversation without hurting each other's feelings, right? That we don't get our feelings tossed into it. And then when we start, that we can really incredibly grow. But then take that and pile that onto your business, right? Again, check your ego at the door. Your idea is not the greatest idea. It's an idea and it may have gotten you to some level. But all of these other people, if you want them to contribute, if you want them to put into it, then you can't get offended. You got to strip the emotions out of it. You can't get offended when they slap your baby, so to speak, and they're telling you what they think of it. Excuse me, and what they're bringing to the table. And if you're not willing to let that environment exist, then you'll never get it. You'll get surrounded by a bunch of yes men, and that can you walk you right into the ground, telling you that you're amazing and wonderful while you're failing miserably. I think that you have to have that openness and that bare truth. And at the same time, when they're given an idea that the group thinks is, or the management team or or even me thinks is not a great idea, you have to work really hard at creating an environment where they're not insulted when you tell them that too, right? So you got to have this open, you got to start there first. And that's not easy to create at all. That's not easy at all. It takes conversations. Um, but I think it has a lot to do with, like, again, when we're talking about the level that we get at, candidly, it's also, you could run a parallel right along with this, that is also what a successful marriage looks like. A successful long-term relationship has brutal truth, just absolute truth with each other. And I love, I love another idiom. I just love these little sayings. And that is that, love is not blind. That they say love is blind, but that's not true. That's a saying. They say love is blind, but it's not blind. Actually, love actually sees more, not less. Right. I actually know what I don't like about my partner, and she probably knows all the things she doesn't like about me. Um, but because it is love, it chooses to see less, right? And so we go, I know that that's a problem. I'm going to live with it. And because I love her and she loves me, she's going to live with my things, and we're just going to move on past all that. In business, a little bit the same, but in a good collaborative business, we see all the ugly stuff. We have to, because we can't fix it if we're unwilling to see it. If we're going to be blind to that process is broken because I'm concerned about, hurting the guy, my department head's feelings because he's worked hard in this department. I'm not challenging whether you've worked hard in your department. I'm not challenging whether you do a good job. I think everybody comes to work every day intending to do a fantastic job, but it doesn't mean that everything we do is exactly the way that needs to be, including me. And we all need to be able to improve. And the only way you can do that is brutal truth. That if you can get to that place where you can have those just unvarnished conversations with everyone, then you can finally unpack and get that 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 10. Everybody's throwing their ideas into it, and you're just coming out with the best. Um, but at the same time, there's a warning that goes along with that, and that is, the warning that I would give with that is that we plan by democracy. In other words, we think and we look out at what we're going to do by letting a lot of people vote in on it, but we execute by dictatorship. So once we've kind of got the decision made and this is how it's going to be, and we lay down the policies and we all have, then that's what it is. It doesn't mean that they're never changeable, but that we're going to execute based on what we've decided, and that's how we're going to do it, and we just get on it and do it. So there you go. I don't know if that answered your question.
You did. So what you've talked a lot about, Ken, is collaboration within the company.
Mhm.
intra-company. How
Mhm.
about outside? If you have collaborative relationships with other companies, again, what are the things that you look
Yeah.
for with that?
So that gets tougher. Because it gets tougher. We talk about collaborating with other companies. There's a lot of different companies that are involved in what we do. So there's the end client. And I'm obviously we're collaborating with them, trying to get their advertising campaign on the ground to actually do what it needs to do, their marketing campaign. And we of course want to collaborate with them. I don't get the luxury of being able to expect that I won't hurt their feelings. So you have to carefully tread there. You're trying to do the best thing for them, but of course, if they've got a product or a problem with their product, I think our responsibility to be truthful with them. I think we have to tell them what that is, right? If they've got a market issue, their competitors are either have a superior product or a better price point or whatever. We got to show the weaknesses to them too, because it's the only way that they're going to get stronger. At the same time, you have to carefully balance that with I got to retain the client. And the other side of it is I'm not working under my brand when I'm working with the end client. We're working under somebody else's brand. So I've got to be really careful because now I'm reflecting on their brand, right? So that gets complicated there for sure. Um, and then the other kind of external collaboration is where we're talking to our agency partners. And so we elicit feedback from our agency partners constantly. I think it's important and to hear how we can improve our services. Again, we're not our processes, our services, our customer service, all of it is open to discussion. And there's not going to, enter into. We've created this environment that while we have a lot of confidence and that we do a good job, we're not going to say that this is the only way that it can be done and that we can't hear, right, from how our customers are, our true customers, which is our white label partners, and what their feedback is. And we accomplish that in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways that we do that is that we have a weekly meeting. We have two different meetings. One is our partners meeting, which is with our strategic partners and our basic partners. We have two levels of partners. And we have a weekly meeting with them. And we also have a white label roundtable partner meeting that happens every week where we interact with them and get feedback from them, and we keep our ears open. And if you've trained your people internally to be okay with that unvarnished truth, right? Then they can accept feedback from even from customers because unvarnished truth is from them as well, right? If they're telling you this and you go, okay, well, something I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to get upset. Well, wait a second. This person, they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, they do because it's their perception, their interaction with us. And so we need to open our ears and hear it. And then we have to decide how and if we're going to, if and how we're going to deal with that, adjust to it, or make changes in our organization. So there are a lot of, I think, collaborative opportunities externally as well.
And our time is going really rapidly, but I have one more
Sure,
question for you before we
sure.
go. And that is, when is somebody ready to come to you for white label services?
Sure. So, we can fit in a lot of different situations, all the way from inception, way on out. So, our oldest agency partner has been an advertising agency for over 75 years. So, there's the long run. That's the outside edge. They've been doing that for a long time, and they brought their digital to us to do their digital work while they do all the traditional brand PR, radio advertising, television, all the things that we don't do. We are their digital arm. All the way out to we signed up, somebody a couple of days ago who is starting out. They're starting a brand new age. They got nothing. In fact, some of the agencies we start with literally are entrepreneurial right out of the gate. And what they have is maybe one skill that is their thing, right? So it's a one man shop right now, and maybe they're a web designer. And so they know how to build websites, and that's their thing, but they don't have the SEO, the PPC, or the social media. And yet they're going to be knocking on this guy's door to sell him a website. Why not go ahead and sell them other services while I'm there? but I don't have the skill set inside in-house in my own one person shop to do it. And that could be a wide variety. Again, they could be somebody who does social media. They're really good at Facebook, but they don't know how to build websites, or they don't do SEO, and they don't do pay-per-click. So whatever their specialty is, they can bolt on us to do the rest. And we can bolt on in a couple of different ways. We can bolt on like a lifetime partner, meaning that you're going to use us for SEO and PPC as part of your business model, just running forward. That's how we're going to do it. And I'm going to focus on building this side of my business in house. Or we can bolt on in a way that, well, let me just share with you, going back all the way to the beginning. The hardest part about growth for us is manpower versus, and that's labor cost versus revenue. So in the beginning, we've got 10 PPC accounts, and I got one guy, and he can service all 10 of them, but he's about at his limit. He really can't service anymore. Um, but if I brought on a new PPC guy and then I split the accounts between them, I'd have 5 and 5. Well, 5 accounts doesn't really pay for one guy, and now I've got 2 guys with half loads, and I'm not making enough revenue on that. And so that's really hard in a growth, as a growth for an agency, where we could do that kind of in partnership with our partners, where we bring on to a certain number of accounts, then they are ready to hire somebody they want to do internally, and then they bring the accounts from us over to them. And then, they grow new accounts on us, and then they get a full load and they bring it on to another employee, and they can grow their company that way without having to sacrifice service. So the long-winded answer to your question is, from inception to 75 years old, we can find a way to fit with almost any situation. So
Got it. What have we left out that is really important for people to know about what you do and how you
the
derive
sevens,
your thinking?
we
Let's
left out the
go ahead.
sevens. You ready for the sevens? The
I'm
sevens are
ready for
bigger
the
than
seven.
business.
Go ahead.
You ready for the sevens? I'll give you the sevens. That's you said, what did we leave out? We left out the sevens. And you're talking about building you talk about building a legacy. And I just think that everything becomes, when you say that word legacy, legacy is what is left after you're gone. And so I love the exercise of the sevens. It only takes a minute, and it sets you on the right path. So if your audience is listening, stop for a minute, close your eyes, think about this. If you had 7 years to live, what would you want to get accomplished? What things would you want to do? Who do you want to spend time with? What's important in your life? What's on your list of things that you want done in 7 years? All right. So you write that list down and you know what it is. Then break it down and go, if you had 7 months to live, what's on the list now? What things do you want to get accomplished inside 7 months? Does the list different from 7 years? Probably is. Now break it down again. We got 7 weeks. What's on the list now? Who's important? Who do you want to spend time with? Who is it you haven't made a phone call to? What is it you want to get accomplished with 7 weeks to go? Down 7 days. You got 7 days. What's on your list? Down 7 hours, down 7 minutes, down 7 seconds. So you keep doing that list and you get it all the way down, and you look at the list. And then the question you have to ask yourself is, why aren't you doing what's on your 7 second list? Why aren't you doing what's on your 7 minute list? Why aren't you doing what's on your 7 day list? Because if you're skipping doing those things right now, then you don't know. You have no idea. Right now, we could finish this interview and a meteorite could fall through the roof of my building and crush me, and it is over. And if you're not doing what you're doing for the sevens, then you're missing something. And if you're putting it off, that personal thing that you have on your list, like, I know I want to spend more time with my mom. Well, why am I not spending more time with my mom right now? If then that's the challenge you have to ask yourself. We have no choice. Most of us are not independently wealthy. We can't just say, well, I'm just going to go do whatever I want to do, and it's only going to be those. We have to work. We have to create a living. We got to put a roof over our heads. We got to take care of our families. We got all these financial responsibilities. But that is the 9 to 5. Everything outside of that is a choice. And the question is, what are you doing? So that's the sevens. And it is very clarifying about what your mission and purpose, or what you believe is you're trying to accomplish. And if you're trying to build a legacy, then it is probably about what's on your list. And are you ignoring that right now? If you're young, do you have kids that you're actually not spending time with right now to go do this? Well, is that smart? Maybe it is. And maybe you need to have a balance, but you shouldn't ignore what's on that list. You absolutely need to take care of what's on your sevens. So look at your sevens. There you go. That's what we didn't ask about. So the sevens are tell you what you're why you're doing it. The eights get it done. All right. And so my daily eights are this. The daily eights. The premise is that that I'm going to work 8 hours in a day, right? And as an entrepreneur and as a business leader, we get sucked in so many different directions. We get pulled off doing this and that and this and that. And our day is really not being driven by us. Our day is being driven by the external forces in our day. And so my daily eight says I start my morning every morning and I write down 8 things that I want to get done today. I want to get done, not what the world wants me to get done, but I want to get done. 6 of them are professional and 2 of them are personal. And so I run that list of 8. And the theory is if I'm going to work 8 hours, I could at least get 8 things done, right? Just 8. That's all I want to get done. And sometimes it might be I'm going to cook dinner tonight for my wife because she's been cooking dinner too many times and it's my turn. Or I'm going to make sure that I do that. So my list can be varied. 6 again, 6 professional, 2 personal. On Saturdays, I flip it. I flip the script. I never stop working. So it's 6 personal, 2 professional, flip it over, right? So I'm gonna get 6 personal things I want to get done today. I might be going fishing, it might be spending time with grandkids, it might be whatever. Um, and I'm not gonna get dry. I'm gonna make plans. Sundays, no list, no list at all. Completely just chill out, rest, relax, do whatever, go with the flow. I'm not gonna have a list, it's gonna be a listless day. Doesn't mean I won't do work, doesn't mean I won't do personal, it just means I'm gonna just kind of just go with the flow. So sevens tell me why, eight's how I get it done. How about that?
I love that. I will love that. And we will send that out to a lot of people. So your sevens is
Good,
great.
good,
Ken,
good.
thank you so much for being with
Thank
us.
you for having me.
Those,
It's been a real pleasure. I love to talk, and you can obviously tell that.
those of you who are listening will have information about Ken in the show notes for how to contact him or to get more information. So please feel free to get in touch with him, or if you need help, let us know. And please remember to visit our website at buildtomorrow.com and our social media sites as well. Thanks very much for listening, and thank you, Ken.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.